Adelaide. On the Sunday bench at the station, I could only see in Grandpa's expression how he still remembered the first time he saw one. He had told on many occasions the story of so many years ago when he was young and still lived in the desert. Upon looking at it in the dawn, he had stood there static and terrified, faced with the mirrored vision of the worm of death, the metallic monster that in front of his eyes went through the devastated moor of Augusta. During the fleeting chilling sweat which came to him later, he had the horrifying sight of people gobbled up whole inside the iron snake, exhaling smoke through the nostrils, leaving a black breath of death in its passing, and he heard just its thunderous shrieking of madness and the track of the ground it stepped on. Already before, when he went out hunting with the tribe, Grandpa and everyone had seen the gleaming bars, perfectly parallel, which kept on for so many distance, up to the forbidden territories of the white man. The gullible believed that it was only an invention of the humans who had just arrived, but the skeptical were infinitely convinced that it was a sound divine sign. Now, before the vision of the incomprehensible being, Grandpa had doubted the possibility of its earthly creation. It was right at that moment that the unreal object started squeaking with a fussy persistence, stopping exactly on time in front of the metal dune, which was precisely upon the railroad and hindered the course of the journey. Then it happened that from the feverish wild animal, now tamed, came up an illusion of the desert, the girl with Dutch linen dress and brooches of 100-year-old grandma. Her round face and the eyes of a lost lamb gave her a haughty, displeased appearance. Behind her came a bony, plain youth, with an angular face, but the same eyes of her sister, with the brilliant longing of the always intrepid. Later, from the sides of that ancestral whale of the sand, went out all kinds of people, dressed up like the ostriches of the desert of nothingness. Grandpa had stood watching, and after some minutes, seeing that the strangers had civilized costumes, he approached to wish them peace. The little girl was the first one who saw him, and ignoring the warnings about the native savages, she came to him. Grandpa stretched his hand, indicating her face to touch her, and the girl simply bit his finger. He moved back a step and asked her, in an ancient aborigine dialect, "What are you doing?" To which the girl replied with a perfect intuition, "I wanted to taste coffee without milk." The little girl said they were heading to Alice, and then revealed that she and her brother came from the frost groundwater territory of Alberta, but yearned to know the irresistible southern continent from which Captain Cook had told about. They had finally arrived, and were now living in Adelaide with her disgraceful Aunt Babs. The girl explained now to Grandpa that the train wasn't a terrible serpent god, but a wonderful technological advance. At that time, the chubby assistants of the conductor had taken out the 4 shovels to eliminate the yellow mountain which prevented them from reaching their destination. The girl's brother could finally help, but only after a long session of persuasive rhetoric given to the conductor about his jovial strength and his unconditional self-denial. On the night of the first day, the girl and Grandpa lay down together to watch the stars above, and when they fell asleep, their dreams got inevitably entwined. This way they woke up hugged and radiant. One of the chambermaids of the train saw them, and later warned the girl in whispers, "Look after you from the mad people of the desert. They are untrustworthy." By the days they were stranded in that sea of sand, the passengers of the Gan had to bear all sorts of incidents, from having to hunt a pile of rabbits and eating them stale and salty the subsequent days, as far as having to tolerate the drowsy heat from the interior of the burning coaches. Even so, and somehow, both children understood each other and wandered around together without worries. They even saw amazed on the 6th day since the train stopped, the humble lonely graveyard next to the railroad, founded for the infected ones of typhoid fever, and how it turned in an instant into the smelly fluted marsh of floating bones due to the unexpected biblical monsoon. Grandpa and the girl seemed to live in another place, where the stopped train didn't look like an obstacle towards the aim, but an essential means. It was on the 9th day that the dune completely disappeared, and the elegant ladies clapped with joy. But then the misfortune occurred, for when everybody had to clear the road, the girl's brother got stuck by his corduroy trousers to the immutable wheel, and the massive gears staggered just a second before severing his leg in an instant. The shaken crowd carried him to the nearest coach, while one of the assistants settled the curse to the maximum. Grandpa could only see the girl once more through the dusty window pane of the train, with her face melted in tears and the Dutch linen stained with red. In this foolproof way, the theories of Grandpa's tribe had been proven. It was a monster, only that it had been asleep the last 9 days, but today had awoken starved to death and had ended up assaulting its match-planned prey, the youth with the bright eyes. On remembering the story again, I couldn't hold back my curiosity. When Grandpa stood up, I asked him confused, "Then why do you now travel by train?" He turned around and answered me with an imminent conviction, "Because I'm longing to get to Adelaide."